All right. Hello, everyone. Come on in. We are going to start our show. I'm Dr. Natalie Phillips,
I'm Dr. Hannah Galloway.
and we're going to be doing a fun show today, getting ready for 4th of July. But before we do that, I'm going to have Dr. Galloway talk real quickly about our YouTube channel.
Yep, so here is our YouTube channel up at the top, and in the right corner, there's a subscribe button if you aren't subscribed. We're kind of stuck at 8 subscribers, so we're working on that number. But I think the YouTube channel is easier to access if you want to send a link to somebody that doesn't have Facebook or something like that. But it's also kind of an easy place to see all the videos right there together. And then they have all the little embarrassing thumbnail images of us doing funny stuff to represent what the episode is for.
Oh my gosh, I love it. You're going to get us. We're a little ornery today. Okay, so let's take that down here. All right. So as we are preparing for 4th of July weekend, I thought as people are kind of joining in, we talk a little bit more about how we celebrate 4th of July. I've always got a funny story, I think, talking about 4th of July, because I think that when I first moved here, it was so different. So I grew up in Hawaii, and in Hawaii, we don't actually, we celebrate 4th of July, but we don't play fireworks, is what we call it, right? So, in the street, that types of thing between your houses and everything like that. We normally do it on New Year's Eve, which is different. It's just a Hawaii thing, I guess. And then for 4th of July, sometimes we would go and then watch fireworks somewhere, right? We didn't play it as much. So then when I moved here to Colorado, I had no clue that they were illegal and that you're not supposed to play in the streets. So when the kids were young, we were coming back home from South Dakota, and I stopped in Wyoming at the fireworks stands because I was like, oh my gosh, it's July 4th and it's on a Sunday. And, we got to go get the kids because I want the kids to grow up with this kind of tradition of playing with fireworks. So bought a bunch of fireworks. We come back home to Colorado and we start playing in the street and burning stuff and making things go up in the air a little bit. Not a lot, because I don't think we bought a lot of aerials. It's just the stuff that play on the ground, right? Sparklers, all that kind of stuff, right? And I'm sitting there going, okay, why isn't anybody on this street playing with fireworks? Like, we used to do that all the time. What's wrong with these people? And then we played for a while, and then we gathered everything and like went inside. And I was talking to my neighbor, and and I said, "How come nobody plays fireworks here on 4th of July?" And she's like, "Because they're illegal here." And I had no idea. And so I always like laugh about it because, I thought I was giving my kids a great opportunity to play in the street with fireworks and little things like that you light and you run back to your house and watch. But now we just have barbecues and we go watch fireworks. So that's our tradition here for July 4th. What about you, Hannah or Dr. Galloway?
So I grew up in Missouri, which is like a lawless land, and fireworks were everywhere. You can buy them anywhere. There's tents, set up all over. People do their own fireworks. Actually, my husband took my daughter back to Missouri, where we're from, for 4th of July. And there's this big 4th of July party that they're going to go to. But people personally buy thousands of dollars of fireworks, tens of thousands of dollars of fireworks, and then have a whole bunch of people over and like have a big, fireworks show. So they're going to go do that.
Nice.
But yeah, growing up in Missouri, they're legal. There's not a lot of laws around it. So you're allowed to do it anywhere, anytime. We were kids, shooting Roman candles at each other and stuff that's really super dangerous. Because that's life in Missouri. So whenever we moved here, I actually thought there's people don't do stuff with fireworks here. Like, that's kind of weird. But it's like you said, they're illegal within city limits, and then everybody just watches the big shows. I live in Windsor, so they do one over the lake, and you can see them from my front driveway. So
oh, nice.
I'll probably have a pretty low-key 4th of July this year, but it's funny to hear about 4th of July in Hawaii.
Well, I'm glad that we grew up together, like very similar. But now every time I scowl, like I was driving, and I scowl when I see tents that sell fireworks here in Colorado, because I'm like, why do they do that? Because it's illegal anyway. Like, nobody can do it anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, a little crotchety scowl, as I go along. So anyway, okay. So talking about being dangerous, right? We want to talk about some different protection that you can have for your ears when it comes to 4th of July. And I know that we've talked about it on different shows before, but we thought we'd just bring it out again for 4th of July heading into that. So first of all, we're going to talk about the sun protection for your ears, especially if you're going to be at the lake or someplace in Colorado. If you guys celebrate differently, whatever. I know that Dr. Galloway and I talked about different ways that we used to celebrate in different states. So the reason why it's so important to protect your ears from the sun is because ears are actually the third most common location for skin cancer. And so it's crazy because you don't think about it, especially like look at both of us, like we both have our hair over our ears, but if you're going out on the lake, you have a hat on, you pull your hair back, or if you have shorter hair or if you're a man, like your ears are really exposed. And so that being the third most common location for skin cancer is huge. So don't forget to put sunscreen on your ears. So the way it goes, if you're wondering what the first two are, and then the rest of the list, there's about 8 areas that you might not be thinking about to make sure that you protect it from the sun. So the face is first, obviously. And I think as we get older, more and more people are putting sunscreen on every day. They're even telling kids to put on sunscreen every day when you send them to school, right? So the face, the scalp. I thought I was talking to somebody and there was actually a part. Oh, it was you, Dr. Galloway.
Yeah.
You're talking about like a spray that you can have for your scalp for the line that you have, because the scalp is the second most
Yep.
common location for skin cancer. And so instead of having your oily hands and getting all the oil, I think that you had said that there was a particular spray that you can order, right?
Yeah, there was this spray I used to buy that was called Sport and Scalp, and I think it was Banana Boat, but it was clear, and you could just spray it like right on the part of your hair, because I'll always get like burnt right there on the part, and it was great. But I haven't found it in the last few years. And we were talking about how nobody wants to do that because it makes your hair all greasy and gross. This kind of just feels like you sprayed hairspray like on your part. It makes it kind of like crispy, but it's not white or anything. So I'll have to be on the lookout for that again. But what a genius idea, right? That we don't have to have big clumps of white cream in our hair.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. So the face, the scalp, then comes the ear at third, right? Third ranking for the most common location for skin cancer. Then you've got the neck after the ears. Okay. So your neck area, hands, chest and back, legs, you think of. Palms of hands and soles of feet is another one, is the 8th one, which I think a lot of people don't think about. Like maybe you think of putting it on your hands, on the back of your hands, the sunscreen, but then also palms of hands, soles of feet, and nail beds was the 8th one. So that was kind of interesting too, because most of the times when people are putting sunscreen on, they're like putting it on their hands, they're putting it all over where they think they're going to get exposed, like their neck, their chest, their arms and legs, and their face. And then they wash their hands. So you want to make sure that you have something on the soles of your feet and the palms of your hands, as well as your nail beds. But again, sun protection for your ears. Don't forget to do that, because your ears, again, are the third most common location for skin cancer. So that's kind of scary. So we're going to
Yes. And a lot of
that.
times too, you can't see on this back ridge of your pinna here. And so we are always looking there on patients because we're looking at their hearing aids and how they've got it fit. And so sometimes I'll ask about it, like, have you had that checked out? That looks a little bit suspicious back there, because you can't see it. So I think that's part of it too.
Yep. All right, then we're going to go to sound protection for your ears. It's a little bit easier for us because we always kind of talk about this kind of stuff, but we've got some really cool facts coming up that Dr. Galloway had researched. But sound protection for your ears, simple. Again, if you're going to, fireworks tend to be a little bit further away, right? That you're not watching it and people aren't playing it in the streets like how we grew up playing in the streets. But if you are celebrating by going to a concert this weekend, for 4th of July or whatever it is, or you're out on the boat and you guys are blasting the music because it's fun, right? Just make sure that you are protecting your ears. So 40 million adults have hearing loss due to high noise exposure. And this could be something that is an impact noise, which can be over 100 decibels, or it can be constant sound, right? And again, if you're going to concerts or you're going to a whole day long fun thing, with friends or with family, you want to make sure that don't forget to pack some earplugs just in case, or it also allows your ears to get a little bit of a rest or a break. Typically, like we've talked before with noise exposure, that if you're listening to sound over 85 decibels, and there's so many apps out there now that you can download
Mhm.
and you can hold it out to see what am I listening to? Is it as loud as 85 decibels? It'll tell you. So it's a sound level meter app. That's what you want to look for. And then download it, hold it out in the place that you're whatever you're celebrating or wherever you are, and just see what it is. I've done it even in a basketball arena. When there's so many fans, I've opened my app and I've run the sound level meter to see. And actually, a basketball arena of a lot of fans is actually over 85 decibels. And that's what we're looking for. Is if it's over
Mhm.
85 decibels of noise, then you can only withstand about 8 hours constant, right? Five more above that. So if it goes up to 90 decibels, it's a half-life rule. So then it's only 4 hours. 95 decibels is only 2 hours, and then so on and so on. So 100 would be an hour and whatever it is. And so it's super
Mhm.
important. Maybe pack your earplugs, download an app for wherever you're going so that you know when you should probably use it, depending on how long you're going to be spending in that area. But
Mhm.
definitely you want to protect your ears because, again, the fact that we're going off of is that 40 million adults have hearing loss due to this high noise exposure. And especially on a weekend where you can
Mhm.
control the controllables, right? And you can think ahead and pack a few things or download that app that might be kind of helpful as well.
Yep, and I actually, my cousin got married a couple summers ago, and in Missouri, they had a ton of fireworks at the wedding, so they did like this really beautiful fireworks show. And I think one thing that we'll talk a little bit more about, but the closer you are to where they're setting them off, the louder it's going to be. And this was at like an outdoor venue, sort of like a park with like a covered shelter. And I was measuring the sound of the fireworks, and they were the big, expensive fireworks that go, way up in the air, but they were like 110 dB
Huh.
outside. And so
Wow.
I think that's something else to think of. If you're watching the show at Windsor Lake from my house, clearly the sound is not going to be as big of a deal as if it's right in my backyard. So just be cautious with that with your kids and everything too. My daughter was at that wedding, and I didn't know there was going to be fireworks. We were not prepared, to protect our ears. And I thought she would be really scared at how loud it was. She was actually super engrossed in it and like loved it. But if I was to know we were doing that again, I would bring like some of those noise canceling over the ear headphones
Mhm.
for her, just to make it a safer experience. But it can certainly be a lot louder the closer they are to you.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk about physics of sound a little bit. So this is interesting. So whenever you're watching fireworks, it takes a while. Like you see the firework and then you hear the sound. So why that is because of how light and sound travel. So it takes 3 millionths of a second for the light to reach you, but 3 whole seconds for the sound to reach you. And of course, that's going to be different based on where you're watching from, how far you are, to the firework and all of that. Here in Colorado, some people like to watch fireworks from above. So I had some friends that lived up in Winter Park, and they would go to some of the really high peaks and watch the town fireworks, but the town fireworks are actually below them. So you could like watch the fireworks explode from below you, which is pretty cool. So that would also
Hmm.
have something to do with the light and sound when you hear it, see it, depending on how close you are to it. If you're at higher elevation, you're going to be closer to the light and also likely closer to the sound. So, anyway, that's kind of fun to think about.
Mhm.
Come to Colorado and have an experience where you watch fireworks from below you, which I would like to do sometime. The other thing is fireworks, they have different sounds, right? And so I thought this was really interesting, and I'll probably have to read a little bit off this website about the physics. But essentially, they make different sounds because different things are happening with the energy. So, with a firework where you just hear the bang, the flame reaches the gunpowder inside the firework, ignites, and it creates a large amount of energy. That air is escaping from the container, and that's when you get the boom bang sound. Let me open my webpage here. So, when fireworks create a whistling sound, it's actually just the physics of the construction of the firework. So, it's a narrow tube. And so the partially hollow tube is used to kind of resonate that sound. And it says that when the oxidizer and the organic salt in the fireworks start to burn and emit gas, they make a whistling noise. And then that partially hollow tube kind of resonates that sound, so that you get that whistle effect. It also talks about, bigger versus smaller fireworks. You're going to get a different type of whistling sound. And then crackling, this one was really interesting. So, the ones that look kind of sparkly and then you hear the crackle, that noise is produced by the burning of the titanium metal flakes on the fireworks. So it says, since all metals have an oxide layer, when the titanium is inside the flame, it melts and the oxide layer cracks open. So that's kind of where you hear that crackling sound, which is pretty cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I like
I
that.
never really thought about the differences in sound, but yeah, it all goes back to physics and the length of the tube and where the sound resonates and all of that. So this is just a little bit out of order, but when you're watching fireworks, if you're going to wear earplugs, that's great. I also like over the ear, kind of sound canceling headphones would be good as well. Those super oral headphones. And they have a rating on them. So if you buy a package of earplugs, it'll say NRR 22 or something like that. And that is the noise reduction rating, meaning that when they put that earplug in a mannequin that we call Kimar, he has a standard size 2.0 cc coupler of an ear. When you fit his earplug just perfect and you put him in a sound booth, he gets 22 dB of noise reduction. But I had a professor that would tell us that the NRR meant not really relevant because you're not Kimar, you don't have a perfect insertion of the earplug, and you're not in a sound booth. So there's a lot of different, things that might change. The big thing is just making sure the earplug fits right. I never was able to get foam earplugs to fit right, so I didn't find them very effective until I went to grad school and learned exactly how to put them in. I think in general, the super oral are just a lot easier because you put them on your head and they just work. But that's what that NRR means. So the higher the number, the more that the earplug or the hearing protection is supposed to reduce the sound with a adequate fit. So that's the big thing. And if you have earplugs and you wonder, are they fitting right or whatever, we can actually test that in the booth. We can put you in the booth and do a little hearing test over the sound field speakers, then put your earplugs in and do the same test again and see how much it reduced the sound for you. If there's a gap or the earplug has shrunk, if it's custom made, or it's foam and it's not inserted correctly, it's literally going to do nothing because you have to have that seal to protect your ear. So we thought that would be some interesting information for you. So if you're trying to buy earplugs and you want more protection, you want that NRR to be a higher number, but take it with a grain of salt and keep in mind it has to be inserted correctly. So especially for kids, sometimes the super oral headphones are just a better option because you can pop them on your kid's head and that it's in the right spot, and that it's going to be working for them, and then it's easier to get on and off as well.
And I just wanted to add too, when you were talking about putting people in a booth to test them on the effectiveness of the earplug. So if you are getting custom earplugs done, have your audiologist put you in the booth and just verify that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, rather than just kind of looking at it and making sure the fit is okay. And then also we usually go over making sure that it isn't rubbing up against, anything in your ear causing a sore, or after you wear it for a couple of hours or so, it might be a pressure pain somewhere. The other thing that you want to check would be that effectiveness, where we could put you in the booth and do that testing without them on and then with them on, and it'll tell you how much noise that they're actually reducing. So that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of times if you get custom earplugs made, we'll tell you, go home, wear these for a really long portion of the day, like how long the longest time you would be wear them. So that way we can tell, are they going to make your ears sore? I have custom made earplugs, for sleeping, like to sleep in a hotel or something like that. And they make my ears sore after I've worn them to bed all night, but they're super effective. So, it kind of balances it out, and I don't use them often, but if I had to wear them all day at work every single day, I probably would have had them remade just so they were a tiny bit more comfortable. because they can still be really effective. But that's just kind of something that we have to try and see how you do, and then they can usually remake it, or we can modify it in our office too,
Mhm.
to try to make it better.
Yeah. So, with that, we hope that you all have a great 4th of July weekend. Remember some of the tips that we have. Share this out to some of your friends. Join our YouTube channel, subscribe, as well as maybe send a YouTube, one of our shows to somebody that you think might actually benefit. That would be great. And with that, we will be here next week with a whole new episode of All Things Odd. So, thanks for tuning in and have a great 4th of July weekend.
Thank
All right.
you. Bye.